Welcome to the FantasyFling DFS channel.
What's up, guys? It's Fling here with another Draftkings first look for the UFL. God, it's already week 4. This thing's almost halfway over, but it's been fun. And let's go ahead and kind of jump right into this episode. All right, so it was a pretty good week. Again, did quite well actually. On Draftkings, almost had another takedown. So gonna hop into that. Finished 8th, top 10 in the main, the 20K to first, and it was so tilting because you guys could see my lineup right here. This was the last game. I had an AJ McCarron double stack with Shepard and Hakeem Butler, and I had a McFarland bring back, and I knew the San Antonio side was going to be chalky, so this was a direct leverage play on the San Antonio side for me. And of course, like the last 8 minutes, I'm sitting in 7th place, and I have 4 players from this game. The 2 touchdowns, they go to Sailors, the backup, of course, for St. Louis, and then I think there was a tight end, Elise Mack, who got the touchdown instead of McFarland. So very tilting, specifically with Darius Shepard only getting 3 receptions. He normally gets peppered with targets. So if he just, gets a few more targets in that fourth quarter, just trying to run out the clock and get some first downs, I certainly would have got a little bit higher here, would have got more into the money, but was pretty good. And, overall was happy with it. Just 2 top 10 finishes back to back. And go ahead and log back in here. And I want to show you guys my boy Grim. So Grim is a DFS Army subscriber. And, like I've said, I do a weekly cheat sheet for DFS Army. UFL only, do NFL as well, but UFL. And my boy Grim, he's one of DFS Army subscribers. He pointed this out to me in the chat. He had 2 lineups that were almost in first place. So, yeah, he placed 2 lineups in the top 5. He had a Jordan Tiamu to Roland stack. And looks like it was a Vaughn's bring back, who I had as well. And, he had McFarland. He had Butler, Shepard. So he was close, very close as well. Shout out to him. Good job, dude. Appreciate you. And by the way, guys, if you want to have access to my weekly cheat sheet that I do at DFS Army, I will put a free month offer in the video. You get a Core 4 membership with DFS Army that gives you a subscription to UFL at no additional cost. So that is going to be the Core 4 sports, of course, NBA, NHL, MLB, NFL. And that's also going to give you UFL no additional cost. Most sites, they charge for that. We don't. So just keep that in mind. That said, I think let's go ahead and kind of jump into the Vegas lines. Let's go ahead and kind of start looking at the slate here. All right. So I have the Vegas lines in front of us, and we have some big totals for this week, and that's exciting to me because it's been lower scoring. We've had low totals pretty much overall, and that's obviously going to change this week. We have some big spreads. So big spreads typically point to teams that you want to target, the running backs, of course, and obviously you typically want to target favored quarterbacks as well. But, in this league where it's really hard to pick running backs, I think, that's going to really help us just kind of decide some guys we want to target. So first off, we have Memphis at St. Louis. Memphis has kind of been terrible this year, and we didn't expect Memphis to win the championship or, to even be like one of the 3 best teams. But I expected a lot more from their offense with Cookus and the plethora of pass catchers that they have. And it's really been the offensive line that has killed them. Overall, they have a very poor run blocking team. They're poor in pass blocking. So I think that has had a big contribution to why they've been terrible. And that, they haven't been able to get anything done. They got throttled last week against Birmingham, only scoring 14 points. Well, this week it doesn't get any easier, really. They got St. Louis, and they're 7-point dogs. So on the St. Louis side, I am going back to AJ McCarron plays. I think that those are going to be in play again this week as one of the better passing matchups, as we'll get into. And obviously, you want to favor running backs in this big of a spread. The other matchup, we got DC and Birmingham. So Birmingham looks every bit of a team that won back-to-back championships. Believe it or not, they actually look better. They pretty much are running through the league right now. We'll see once they get to a team like St. Louis to see what that looks like. But right now, it's been really good for Birmingham and really bad for anyone they play. And that this week we got DC. So we're going to get into the defenses here in a little bit. But I think Birmingham is a defense that you want to play. Once again, they're big favorites. Maribor let us down last week. Pearson did okay. It's a split, and that's going to be tough. But I think you do want to play some of both of those guys with this big point spread. And, a little bit of crow last week. Everything that I saw was they were still going to do the 2 QB system with Adrian Martinez and Matt Corral. And projections showed that. I didn't see any word from the coach that it was going to be all Adrian Martinez's job. And that's what I said. When you play 2 QB system, it's high risk. Well, last week it was Adrian Martinez who finally got the nod and got the full-time job. So I think we're going back to Adrian Martinez this week. He smashed. He brings so much rushing floor. We saw him get Kane and Sternberger involved, which is really what I wanted to see. He ran the offense the way it's supposed to be. And I think he's going to be a fantastic play the rest of the way as long as he holds on to that job by himself, which we certainly expect him to, but the way he played last week. So that game has a 47-point total. The next one, a lower game total, and I like it. And I'm going to tell you why in a little bit as we get into quarterbacks. But this game is the lowest total on the slate. Will that mean that it will be the lowest scoring game? No. But as of right now, Vegas thinks it's going to be the lowest total by a large margin. So we'll see how that shakes out. Typically, that's going to be an avoid, but I think I'm going to get a little more contrarian with it this week. Next one we got is Arlington and Houston. And Arlington 0-3, Houston 0-3. We have a battle of the 0-3 teams, and gosh, hopefully Arlington can get it together. I'm not so sure about Houston. Arlington, the defending champs, I would like to see them do a little better than they have. They're 3-point favorites. This sets up really well for all of Arlington's side. I think based on passing, rushing metrics, just looking at Houston's defense, I think this is a week we're going to want to play Luis Perez stacks again. I think they're in play. Letty Brown and Devion Smith both got it going last week. So I think we're going to be able to play both of these guys a little bit. Let's go ahead and, this is a 46.5-point total. So, second highest scoring projected game on the slate. This is one I think we're going to go ahead and look at when we get into quarterbacks. So let's go ahead and jump into it. All right. So kind of sad to see that these contests are starting to shrink. But I still think overall, we're going to get some, we're going to look to target kind of plus EV contests. And, I'll just say that, when these contests start to get smaller, and the prize pool shrinks, don't look to max it. I almost won the thing last week with 20 lineups. I'm not trying to max it. when the EV of the contest goes down. So just keep that in mind. Have fun with it. Don't blow all your bankroll. Bankroll management is important. So there's the 222. Looks like that is back. And then the big one is going to be the 10K to first. So let's kind of jump into that and see what we got here for the quarterbacks. Now, Chase Garbers is on IR. So this is kind of what I was alluding to a little bit with San Antonio. So we got Chase Garbers on IR. He got hurt middle of that game, and then it ended up kind of coming, playing the rest of the game, playing well, but he's now on IR. Well, what does that mean? That means we get Quinton Dormady. It's 6K this week. I'm pretty sure he's going to get the start. He's been the backup. He had like a 40-point game in the UFL. I think it was week 7 of the UFL last year. He had 3 rushing touchdowns and 3 passing touchdowns. I think it was 6 touchdowns, might have been 5, but it was a 40-point game, and he's 6K. So he's going to be a guy that I think is going to be in play despite that low game total. I think he's a guy at 6K. If he scores 18 points, that's the same as AJ McCarron at 10-5 scoring 30 points. So he's a guy I'm certainly going to have some exposure to. I expected him to be mega chalk based on the price, but with that low game total, I'm hoping that he won't be a chalk. And we'll be interested to see as the week goes on. I'm shooting this on Monday morning, this first look, but as the week goes on, I'll be interested to see if if that game starts to climb a little bit as they get clarity who the starter is going to be. Maybe they're just waiting on that. So we'll see if that line starts to move a little bit. But as far as the quarterbacks that I'm looking to target in this week, there's a couple matchups, guys. Now, AJ McCarron versus Memphis. So he's back in play for me. As we saw, they're big favorites. It's a high game total. And Memphis is, by all metrics, a team that you want to target. So they have a 58.8 coverage score via PFF. They've actually given up an average of 311 passing yards in the past 2 weeks. So AJ McCarron, I think initially, if I'm not playing Dormady, he's a guy that I would certainly plug into my lineup right away. A couple other guys that I would be looking to target: Luis Perez versus Houston. Houston, they've been terrible. In fact, I think they just released a guy, one of their defensive backs. You got to be pretty bad to get released after 3 weeks of the season. Getting benched is one thing. Being released is entirely different. So, yeah, they have a 55 PFF score. And we know that Houston or Arlington, my bad. Arlington has been slinging it all over the field, specifically with their defense not being as good. So both of the defenses is pretty poor on both sides here in the secondary. So sorry, guys, my computer just shut down. Both of the defenses are pretty poor in the secondary. So I think Luis Perez and Sinet could end up slinging this back and forth a little bit. Houston obviously having the poor ranking that they do in the secondary. I like Luis Perez and company to get it going a little bit this week. Show you Luis Perez's passing yards through the first 3 weeks of the season. 213 yards, 233 yards, and 290. So, and he looked pretty good last week, had a pretty good score overall. I believe it was about 20 DK points, just because they are going to need to throw the ball a lot because of the state of their defense. And being favored this week, I think they're going to get it going. So that would be the pool for me. Mainly AJ McCarron, Luis Perez, Reed Sinet, and Sinet would be kind of the lower tier. And then Darmody is the guy that I really like. So that's going to wrap it up for quarterbacks. Let's jump into running backs. All right. So last week, as I mentioned, in fact, we'll go to the spreadsheet on this one. But it's been pretty much terrible. It's been hard to figure out the running back room from week to week. Like, for example, guys, look at Mateo Durant. So he plays for St. Louis. He got 14 carries week 2, 104 yards. He got, ridiculous yards per carry, touchdown. He added a reception. He ended up with 21 points. That was week 2. So you'd think, okay, so they found something with Mateo Durant. Well, week 3, Mateo Durant only gets 8 carries for 30 yards, 3.8 yards per carry, 3 receptions. So he gets 6 points. Jacob Saylor's the backup comes in 7 attempts, 62 yards. So it's a complete timeshare. Gets a touchdown, gets a couple targets, adds a reception. He ends up with 16 points. So it's been very difficult to predict week to week what's going to happen at the running back situation. And, because of that, I'm really just looking to target the best matchups each and every week. So we have Ricky Pearson. He continues to get carries. He's looked pretty good, and his price has stayed pretty cheap. He's 6,600. So he's a guy I think we can go back to, because as we kind of look at that big spread, that's what we want to target, as we mentioned earlier. We got Birmingham going against DC. From all accounts, I don't think DC has an amazing rush defense. They've 77 yards week 1, 50, and 123 last week. So, they don't have this stout run defense that you really want to avoid. So I think we can certainly go back to Ricky Pearson here in this spot. Now, one of the most interesting things to me this year has been Wes Hills. I don't know what the heck happened to him. 15 carries, 23 yards, 1.5 yards per carry. Like, it's been absolutely terrible. I know their run blocking isn't great. They have one of the lower PFF scores, in fact, as far as run blocking goes. But this is just really kind of blown me away, because Wes Hills was the league leader last year in carries, and he's been terrible. And so they bring in Colburn, and he ended up being a lot more effective. He got a touchdown. I think that's a complete avoid for me right now. I won't have any Wes Hills this week. If I get burned by him, so be it. But he is just priced way too high for as terrible as he's been. He's still 8,300. I like McFarland this week going against Michigan. I think that's a pretty decent matchup. Michigan against the run, they've actually been pretty decent against the run. But I do expect San Antonio to probably lean on the run a little bit more than they have in past weeks. Now, with their backup in, I think McFarland's a guy you can certainly play. When it comes to matchups, though, it's going to be Marable, it's going to be Ricky Pearson, and another guy that would be a fabulous play would be Mark Thompson for me. So going against Houston, that is a really good matchup going against Houston this week. Houston is a team that's against the run. Or I'm sorry, not Houston. Thompson plays for Houston. Arlington has been a poor team against the run. So we could see actually the numbers the last few weeks that they've given up. Arlington, they give up 82 yards last week. The week before, they gave up 110. And week 1, they gave up 171 rushing yards. So if we can get Mark Thompson in this spot, I would love him this week. Now, one thing I want to talk about just overall lineup construction, because the running back spot has been so terrible to start the year. What I'm really trying to focus on is guys who I think are in good matchups, who are getting a good amount of the work, whether it be running or receiving. And I'm trying to keep it to one running back build. So I'm not going to put Mark Thompson here and then, put, I don't know, McFarland in the other spot. Not saying it won't win. I'm just saying with the running back as bad as it's been, I only want to play one running back. built, and I'm going to spread out my exposures. I'm not going all in on one guy. I'm, looking at a pool of players that I'm comfortable playing, and I'm going to spread out exposures across those guys and try to get some exposures to these backup guys who get touchdowns. The John Levitts, the Sailors, small exposure, but get some exposure to these guys. Letty Brown, who's getting work. Like I said, I love it. Get those guys. Titus Swin, he got a lot more carries last week. He's 4,500. He's a guy I will certainly have. Victor's been terrible. He's limited. And I think just being 4,500 and getting a good amount of carries, let's see what he ended up getting last week. I think that's certainly in play for me. 6 carries, 14 yards, but he got 5 targets on 4 receptions, so 9 points. He's really underpriced relative to his role. Arlington, they giving up an average of 121 yards per game. So, those are going to be the main guys for me. Get a little bit of exposure to Colburn in case he takes over that backfield as he did late in that game. Now, both Devion Smith and Letty Brown have a pretty decent matchup as well. So let's see. Devion Smith, he kind of got it going a little bit last week. And then Letty Brown did as well. And he got 10 carries. He also added 5 targets. So we love to see that. I would be interested in playing both those guys. Running back, it's pretty much been terrible. So let's go ahead and finish this off with pass catchers and defense. All right, guys. So with pass catchers, we're still trying to chase volume. We're also looking for the best matchups. So with, the 3 matchups that I like the most would be obviously AJ McCarron. So with AJ McCarron, we saw Hakeem Butler get involved last week. He got, I believe it was 5 targets, but 87 yards and a touchdown and 7 targets, 6 receptions, 87 yards and a touchdown. As I said, he was going to be involved eventually. He was too good last year. They had to get him going. They did last week, and it paid dividends. So he's a guy that I would like this week in AJ McCarron stacks. He is expensive, so I wouldn't have a ton of him outside of AJ McCarron. Just keep that in mind. And we saw it come at the expense of Aitman. That was another thing I called last week. Aitman Harley was involved. So let's see, the amount of targets Aitman had last week. So let's see the game log. Week 3, yeah. So he only had 4 targets. Those targets went way down. He was pretty much useless last week. So just keep that in mind. These guys probably aren't going to correlate very well with each other. I would expect Shepard to be a bounce back candidate. We saw Shepard last week get the least amount of targets that he's gotten, but he had gotten 8 and 12 the week before. So, last year we did see both Shepard and Butler eat in games together. So I wouldn't say these two are negatively correlated. I would just say they probably were throwing in Sailors a little bit more than they're going to each and every week. So I think Shepard will bounce back at some point. He's still a guy that, it's going to get quite a bit of targets most weeks. Now, Kirkland is up to 10K. And I do think he would be a pretty good play just on the amount of volume. But remember, we now get Dormady. So are they going to still scheme him the ball? Yes. But a guy that I would probably prefer to Kirkland, who I know has chemistry with Dormady, would be Latimer. So Latimer actually he's only 6,700. So I would just plug him in here right now. He's only 6,700. And last year he had, I believe it was week 5, he had 125 yards and a touchdown game with Dormady. So let's say Dormady is my QB this week. I'm definitely going to want to play him with Latimer. They already have chemistry from their time together in Orlando in the XFL. So I certainly love that. I'm going to wrap this up here. It's going to be a quicker one this week, but a couple of guys that I am interested in as well. Like I said, Shepard, Adams, he's a guy that continues to get targets. Now, last week he got 11 targets, which was really high for him, and they were losing. So they needed to put points on the board. He's going to be very much the deep target guy. And we haven't seen the smash game from him, but I think it's coming. Another guy, same team, Dawood Davis. I expect them to be trailing a lot in this game and looking to pepper guys like Dawood Davis, who we didn't see the same amount of targets last week as we did the first 2 weeks, but they're going to be going against Birmingham or St. Louis. I'm sorry. St. Louis has a good pass rush and Memphis has a bad offensive line. So they're going to be trailing a lot, and I expect them to try to get the ball out of Cookus' hands quickly. So, in fact, Cookus, I think he got benched a little bit last week. They pulled him. So, I don't know. Maybe it's someone else, but I think Dawood Davis is a guy that I would certainly go back to. Now, when we talk about good matchups that we want to target, like I said, Hall is a guy, with Sinet and Houston going against Arlington. He's a guy that has a good connection, I think, with Sinet, and I would be willing to go back to him. Last week, he's 7 targets in back-to-back weeks. So ever since Sinet took over, he's been more of a focal point of the offense. He's 7,300. His price has come up a bit, but we've seen double-digit points from him. This is a fantastic game script. I'm also going to like Vaughn's in that same game environment, which I think that game can really go off. So I definitely think you want to have pieces of that. He got 7, 7, and 13 targets last week, and I expect that to continue. He's up to 6,100. The price isn't too high. He absolutely smashed last week. I would love him again. As far as passing matchup, I think that's really what we want to target this week, is those good game environments. And then, we're looking for guys like Deion Kane that we saw get going last week too, with Adrian Martinez taking over. I really love him. He's 6,900. Let's find some cheaper guys here that we'd be looking to plug in. Marcus Sims. I think this dude's going to play in the NFL. Like, this dude is a beast. Even with Perry not throwing very much, this dude is a big play threat. So he's a guy I want to get exposures to every week. Look at average of 90 yards and a touchdown in back-to-back weeks. And his price is only 5,600. So love him. Let's go back to wide receivers. And then where's Roland? Roland, they lost Briley Moore in DC, and Roland was really cheap. Kiki Chisholm, he's playable in stacks of that game. Roland is now up to 4,200. He would be like a good punt for me. 5 targets last week, 4 targets a week before. Got a touchdown last week. They're really banged up at wide receiver. So if we get Kiki Kuti out again, I would love him at this price. So, yeah, I think that's probably more or less how much salary we got left. Going to do it. Let's plug in the defense, and then we'll finish this up. I would probably go more Shepard in this spot without A.J. McCarron. All right, so the defense that I'm interested in this week, and let's go ahead and just pop over to the defense real quick. So there's one matchup that just really stands out to me, and that is going to be the Stallions. Surprise, surprise. So the reason I really love the Stallions is it's a great matchup based on pass rush and poor pass blocking. So DC, they are terrible in pass blocking. Okay. They have a 47.4 PFF score, and the Stallions, we know the talent they have along the defensive line. In fact, their pass rush has a 92 PFF score. So this is just a match made in heaven as far as defense goes. So my first look lineup, I love the Stallions in this spot, and they are big favorites. So it just checks so many boxes. That's what we want to do. We want to check boxes. So last player I would include here would be like Kirkland. So this would be a Dormady double stack with Latimer, Kirkland. We got Sims, we got Shepard, we got Mark Thompson, assuming he plays. This is definitely the type of lineup I would play. So I appreciate you guys joining me for another first look. If you guys like this kind of content, let me know. Hit that like button, comment. Let me know who you played last week, how it went for you, who you like this week. And of course, DFS Army subscribers, for those who are subscribers, you have access to my cheat sheet every week. I'll be working on that tomorrow. I'll be done by Friday, of course. And let's win some money this week. Let's bank one of these, of course. We've been close. I think we've had a couple small fill takedowns, but let's get a big one for sure. So that's it, guys. We'll see you next week. Thanks for joining me. Take care.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to smash that like button and subscribe. You don't want to miss what's coming next. We really appreciate it. And we'll catch you in the next episode right here on the FantasyFling DFS